It is that time again where I talk through the best albums and also run through the best songs of the previous month. We are looking at July, a ridiculously stacked month. I even had to knock off a few albums because I'd had like a huge list of albums that I thought were really good and really worth talking about. But I can only mention so many because this video would go on as long as a centipede. But yeah, let's not waste any time. I'm going to go straight into Jaron, who is an electronic artist that dropped an album earlier in the year. I've got into it a bit late. Thank you to Mr. Buffalo Staple for putting me onto this. I need to highlight it in at least one video, so it's going to have to be this. It wasn't a July release. But man, if you're a fan of like Porter Robinson or some more obscure names in the electronic field at the moment, Delete Zeke among others as well, yeah, you'd love this. I mean, it's so atmospheric, it's so cushiony and soft, and vocally it's performed really well. Yeah, there's so much to like about this album. Seriously, one of the best albums and probably one of the most overlooked albums of the year, for sure. I tend to do a video at the end of the year for overlooked albums. I can see this already in the top 5 for that video, for sure. Like, I'm not seeing anywhere near enough talk about this, and yet its appeal is really wide. Gotta mention Steve Lacy next. I think one of the more improved albums of the year, I would say, you know, in terms of what they dropped before and where they're at now. I think Steve Lacy's really honed in his style really nicely. His vocals are really nice. Lyrically, I would say it's probably somewhere that needs to improve, particularly that freestyle thing that he did. But even still, it's not exactly, you know, badly written by any means, but there's some really great songs on there, you know. Mercury and Bad Habit, so good, and just nice to see that Steve is improving from his previous works. And I can see a big future for this guy. I think he's going to be working with more artists. He's already quite well known, by the way. I mean, I think he has like 15 odd million Spotify listeners, so he's definitely doing well for himself. But I just think in terms of like the net that he can kind of like cover now is wider with the artists that he can work with. I think he can get with some bigger names. I think he could be, you know, one of those kind of like additional producers or additional musicians on other artists' work. I think there's just something about his style that a lot of people are going to love in the music industry, and I think the future's bright. I want to mention Katy J Pearson because not many people have talked about this album, but Talk Over Town is a fantastic track that needs way more ears on it. It's a really nice indie pop album that I think appeals to quite a wide range of people. Once again, just like that Jaron album. If you like that tennis album from a few years ago, you'd definitely like Katy J Pearson. And also there's like a bit of a Sharon Van Etten twang to her voice too in places that I think would again appeal to people that love her music. Yeah, Katy needs more love. This was a good album that did not get talked up enough. Got to mention Viagra Boys next. Just again, like an improvement on the previous work that they put out. God, I really like this album. Spoke about it with my friend John actually, and we had a really good discussion. And he was picking up things that I hadn't even noticed. So in my review, there were things that I hadn't even said. So it is one of those albums actually that when you pay a bit more attention to and you read into a bit more, there's a bit more of a narrative to be unfolded, which I like. I always like that about albums. So yeah, even besides that though, the music, I mean, the way that they're just entering into this dance punk world so seamlessly, I think is really fun. I think the tracks are just way more like brash with the vocals. He just feels more present and he feels a bit more like out of his shell, and he's just going for it all the time. He doesn't care. He's just going straight in there, and it's just made the song so fun, and it's such a great, really enjoyable rock album. One of the best two-step garage house EPs you'll hear this year. Thought about doing an individual video for it, but I just know that in terms of viewership it probably wouldn't get that much, but that is the sad world we live in. But Dirty Bird, man, oh my god, this is so good. I mean, I was recommended Dirty Bird back in 2020, I think it was, or maybe even last year, for the albums that you discovered, that I got you guys to find for me, and someone found this artist, so I was like, oh man, this guy is really good. And the EP's put out Wagon Music, oh my god, it's even better than the album. Jesus Christ. Effect, god damn, what a banger. They're just so good, honestly. I mean, it's like when you see Disclosure go straight in for like the banger stuff. this EP is just very much like that, and not just like Disclosure, but you know, other artists in the field too. Yeah, it's so fun, this album. Well, it's an EP, but check it out, please. Okay, now we're getting closer to the end of the video. I've got 2 more albums to mention, and I think you can probably guess what they are, to be honest, but they're very close. I feel as though I could probably justify giving them both album of the month, but I feel like it's a bit of a cop-out. So we are going to go next with Beyonce. I mean, this is so close, and it's so deserving of an album of the month, you know, label, because it's just so good. The way she's seamlessly transitioned into this dance pop field is fantastic, and the tracks are just so fun and so charismatic, and they're just oozing with personality in every direction. The Beyonce's performances are stellar. It's easily in the conversation for being her best album. Whether you agree or not, I think you can at least say it's in the conversation now. I mean, maybe Lemonade is better in terms of an overarching theme, but just in terms of how well produced these songs are, I mean, Jesus Christ, it is fantastic, and it's just so fun. I mean, the best word you can describe it as is fun. She's just so carefree, she's not taking herself too seriously. It's just the best of what you want from this genre. And it doesn't feel gimmicky either, like Beyonce is now doing dance music. No, Beyonce is owning dance music. That is the difference, and it's so good. And you're probably thinking, what could top that? Well, if you've been following me, you will know that Black Midi is now album of the month. It's small margins though, they're so close. But I just think Black Midi, man, they just gave us such a ridiculously rambunctious, bonkers album that is so hard to decipher at times and so hard to even explain what they're doing. But that's the joy of Black Midi as well. Like, you can't always fully understand how they're doing what they do, but the music itself is so good and it's so erratic vocally. I just feel like they are all over the place and just touching corners that have never been touched in the world of like UK rock music. I just think they're really fantastic. They've got their influences. I've mentioned bands in the review that this album reminds me of, but I feel like they just have a way of just turning it all into their own style. And yeah, they're just fantastic. I think this might put them at the top of the pecking order in terms of like windmill bands now. Excuse me, Jesus Christ. I don't know, I think with Schlagenheim, Cavalcade and this, that's such a great run. I wasn't even the biggest fan of Cavalcade, but even I can accept that this run of albums is pretty untouchable so far. They're just so exciting, and yeah, this had to be my album of the month. So yeah, that's it. They are my albums of the month. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. The video is not over yet though, so don't click away, because now what I'm going to do is let the songs of the month play out at the end of the video. You should stick around to see what those are, and hopefully you hear something that you haven't heard already and you get a recommendation out of it as well. That would be what I'd love to see. So let's go.
Don't be alone with me tonight. All these emotions, I was waiting for a time, but it's not now.
You're a troglodyte. You ain't no ape. You're a troglodyte.
I'm the best thing in your life. Know this pussy good and it purr, but it still got bite. Come through, dubbing on sight. Yeah, this bitch is hood.
Got me smothered, caught me bugging last week. Leave a scar on my soul, cause it's smarter to fold. I take you better when she